I, Kāẓim ibn Qasim al-Husayni al-Rashtī, a humble seeker of truth, was approached by a discerning individual with a profound question. The query concerns the nature of the Jinn, a topic that has puzzled sages and scholars for ages. Though I was occupied with other matters and my health was failing, the importance of the question compelled me to offer an explanation. I will be brief, using allusions and concise phrases. A sharp mind can grasp from a hint what a slower intellect cannot grasp from 1,000 pages. I will use the seeker's own words as the foundation and build my commentary upon them. He asked, "Since the existence of the Jinn is confirmed by sacred texts and personal experience, it is natural to investigate their reality. By understanding them, we can achieve greater spiritual completeness and protect ourselves from their potential harm." The limits of logic and sight. The seeker is correct that sacred traditions affirm the existence of the Jinn. This is a consensus among nearly all faiths. There is no doubt on this point from a scriptural perspective. However, the claim of personal experience is more complex. How do we truly know they exist? Can we prove their existence through pure reason? Many great scholars have admitted that there is no logical argument that can, on its own, prove the Jinn exist. The intellect alone cannot grasp them. Think of it like trying to logically prove the existence of color to someone born blind. Reason has its limits when dealing with realities beyond the physical plane. Can we prove their existence through physical sight? This is even more difficult to validate. Those who claim to have seen Jinn are often dismissed by skeptics as either delusional, their minds tricked by some internal imbalance, or as liars. The physical senses are easily fooled and are not reliable tools for perceiving non-physical entities. If pure logic and physical senses fail us, how then can we approach this truth? We must turn to a higher form of knowing, proof from metaphysical principles and the observation of the patterns within the cosmos and within ourselves. A proof from universal principles. The 4 emanations. To understand the Jinn, we must first understand the structure of reality itself. The divine source, being absolute perfection, creates in the most perfect way possible. Perfection is not static, it is radiant. A perfect being must emanate its reality outwards, like a star radiates light. This process creates a descending chain of existence, where each level is a reflection or a shadow of the one above it. This cosmic order unfolds in 4 primary ranks or emanations. The first emanation, the primal human archetype. This is the first and most perfect creation, the blueprint for all that follows. It is the purest reflection of the divine source, a unified reality with very little separation or multiplicity. In our tradition, we call this the Muhammadan reality. It is the universal human in its most sublime state. The second emanation, the illuminated souls. This rank is an emanation, or radiance, from the primal archetype. Being one step removed from the source, a slight darkness or separation enters the picture. This allows for greater multiplicity. This is the level of the great prophets and enlightened beings, souls of immense purity who are still so close to the source that they are incapable of true sin, though they might leave the better course of action. The third emanation, the human collective. This is an emanation from the illuminated souls, now 2 steps removed from the source. Here, darkness and separation are more established, leading to an infinite multiplicity. This is the rank of humanity. We exist in the archetypal human form, but our distance from the source makes us capable of disobedience and error. We are a more diffuse and complex reflection of the reality above us. The 4th emanation, the Jinn. This is an emanation from the human collective, 3 steps removed from the source. At this level, the darkness, the distance and density is much stronger. The original archetypal human form becomes altered and distorted, manifesting in diverse and varied shapes. This is the reality of the Jinn. Think of it like an image reflected in a series of mirrors. The first mirror shows a clear image. The second mirror reflects the image from the first, making it slightly less distinct. By the time you get to the 4th or 5th mirror, the image is distorted, multiplied, and may seem completely different from the original, yet its origin is still that first image. Thus, the existence of the Jinn is a logical and necessary consequence of a perfect and radiant creation. The divine did not just create the highest reality, it created all its necessary reflections, down to the last. The true nature of the Jinn. Now, let's address the seeker's specific questions based on this understanding. What is the reality of the Jinn? What is their origin, their rank, their relation to mankind, their spiritual purpose, their classes, and their ability to shapeshift? Is the common idea of them being fiery bodies that can look like dogs or pigs based in truth? The reality of the Jinn is that they are an emanation of the spiritual light of humanity. They are a shadow reflection of our own collective reality, existing on a plane one step removed from our own. To put it in philosophical terms, humanity is a primary reality, a substance, while the Jinn are a secondary dependent reality, an accident or phenomenon. They depend on us for their existence, much like a ray of light depends on the sun. The light is real in its own right, but its origin is the sun. Similarly, the Jinn are a real order of beings, but their existence is a consequence of the existence of humanity. Mankind has authority over them because we are closer to the source. We are the gate through which their reality is sustained. Their existence was made necessary by the perfection of the cosmic design. The nature of their creation. We've established that the Jinn are a dependent reality, emanating from humanity. But what are they actually made of? To understand this, we must go back to the beginning. The spiritual light that emanates from the human collective forms a vast, undifferentiated potential, a cosmic sea. Think of this as the prima materia, or raw creative essence for that level of being. By divine wisdom, this sea was separated into its subtle and dense aspects. From the subtle vapor, the higher, more refined parts of their reality were formed. From the dense foam, the lower, more material parts were formed. From the interplay of these subtle and dense aspects, the four classical elements were extracted and balanced to form the foundation of the Jinn's existence: fire, air, water, and earth. Everything in creation is a unique blend of these four pillars. However, in every created being, one element tends to dominate, giving it its fundamental character. While the Jinn are composed of all four elements, their nature is overwhelmingly dominated by one, fire. This explains why sacred texts so often refer to them as being created from fire. The 5 ranks and the elements. To grasp this fully, we need to refine our understanding of the cosmic hierarchy. I previously mentioned 4 ranks, but that was a description of the effects of creation. If we include the cause, we see there are actually 5 ranks, each with a corresponding dominant element. The first rank, the divine will. This is the first impulse of creation, the pure action of the source. Its nature is hidden, powerful, and intensely subtle. Dominant element, fire. This primal fire is why the will is so hard for the mind to grasp. It is pure, formless energy. The second rank, the primal human archetype. This is the first and most perfect created being, the universal blueprint. Dominant element, AIR. Air is the perfect medium to carry the impulse of the primal fire downward, acting as the link between the pure will and manifest reality. The third rank, the illuminated souls. This is the level of the great spiritual masters and prophets. Dominant element, water. Water receives the spiritual template carried by the air and gives it the potential for life and form. The fourth rank, the human collective. This is our level of reality, the world of humanity. Dominant element, earth. Earth is the principle of stability and receptivity. It is the vessel that receives the influx from the 3 higher elements, grounding them and giving them a solid foundation to exist within. The fifth rank, the Jinn. Here the elemental sequence, fire arrow, air arrow, water arrow, earth, is complete. So what comes next? The fifth rank begins a new, lower cycle. It manifests the element that was latent within the previous rank. Dominant element, a secondary fire. The Jinn are the expression of the fire hidden within the earth. They are not made of the primal fire of the will, but of a fire that is kindled from the earthly material nature of humanity. They are the smokeless flame that arises from the green tree of our world. This is the profound secret of their origin. It resolves the apparent contradiction. The Jinn are an emanation from humanity, our earthly rank, and yet they are beings of fire. Their fire is a direct consequence of our earth. This is why the ancient texts say that Iblis, the progenitor of the defiant Jinn, was mistaken when he boasted of being made of fire, while Adam was made of clay. In truth, the Jinn's fire is merely a byproduct of the surplus of Adam's clay, the rank and role of the Jinn. So, we can now clearly state the Jinn's place in the cosmos. They exist in the fifth rank of creation, 1 degree below humanity. Their existence is entirely dependent on the rank of humanity. If the human collective were to disappear, the reality of the Jinn would be extinguished, just as daylight vanishes when the sun sets. They are therefore subservient to humanity in the cosmic order. Our reality is the cause, and theirs is the effect. This metaphysical structure is why it is said that the children of Adam have been honored and preferred over many other creations. We stand in the fourth rank, the stable foundation upon which the worlds are built, and from our reality, other more volatile realities, like the fiery Jinn, emanate. Understand this, and you will understand your place and your power. Submit to this truth, and you will find safety, humanity's essential superiority. All who affirm the existence of the Jinn agree on one point. They are not superior to mankind. Our spiritual station is fundamentally higher. The human form is not merely a vessel of flesh and bone, it is the ultimate expression of the divine in creation. As one great sage said, the human form is the greatest proof of the divine for its creation. It is the book written by the divine hand, the temple built with divine wisdom. It is a collection of the forms of all worlds, a summary of the Akashic record, a witness over all that is unseen, and the bridge between heaven and hell. This superiority must be essential, not just a matter of having a better physical body. If we were essentially the same type of being, there could be no true hierarchy. For one being to be fundamentally superior to another, the lesser must be a ray of the greater. Our relationship is like that of the divine to creation, or a master to their disciples. The superiority is woven into the fabric of our existence, the master and the shadow, our relationship with the Jinn. The relationship between Jinn and humanity is that of a light source to its ray, or a person to their reflection. They are our metaphysical followers, our spiritual shadow. They draw their essence and their power from us. This raises an obvious question. If we are the masters, why are people so often affected and frightened by them? The answer lies in humanity's fallen state. When a person is disconnected from their spiritual core, their true homeland, they forget their rank and their innate power. In this state of spiritual amnesia, they become weak, a victim of the lower forces. Fire can burn them, water can drown them, wild beasts can devour them, and Jinn can frighten them. They become subject to the world instead of being its master. But when a person purifies themselves and reconnects with their true self, the proper order is restored. They enter an ascended state. In this state, everything is affected by them, while they are affected by nothing. The saints, adepts, and true masters of the world are examples of this. The elements obey them, and all lesser beings, including the Jinn, become entirely subservient to them. They reclaim their birthright as chieftains of creation. You might argue that even in a fallen state, a light source should not be harmed by its own ray. This is true. The key is to understand that we operate from two stations simultaneously. The station of the true self. This is our higher essential nature. At this level, we are the light source, and we are completely untouched by our own emanations or reflections. The station of the incarnated self. This is our manifestation in the lower worlds. To exist and act on a plane, you must submit to its laws. In this station, we are a person like any other. We can affect things, but we can also be affected. This duality allows the higher to interact with the lower. Without it, our true transcendent nature could never engage with the material world. Do Jinn have religion? The Jinn are not merely chaotic spirits, they are beings subject to spiritual law and accountability. Sacred texts are clear on this point. But how do they receive this law? The process must honor the cosmic hierarchy. Spiritual energy and divine knowledge cannot leap over a rank. They must flow down through the chain of being. This means the Jinn, rank 5, must receive their spiritual guidance through humanity. Rank 4. Before the establishment of the human archetype on Earth, the Jinn had a prophet of their own kind. But once humanity became the central pillar of this world, rank 4, the system changed. Since then, the prophets of the Jinn received their knowledge from the prophets of humanity. The Jinn have their own teachers, but those teachers are disciples of our masters. This leads to two key distinctions in their spiritual lives. Their core beliefs. The Jinn are obligated to believe in the same fundamental principles as we are: the unity of the source, the reality of the spiritual hierarchy, the afterlife, and so on. However, their understanding is a reflection of ours. We grasp the essence, they grasp the attributes and husks. Their paradise and hell are shadows or echoes of the states prepared for mankind. Because their belief system is a reflection of ours, their spiritual communities are also a reflection. Among the Jinn, you will find believers and non-believers, mystics and materialists, even those who would be considered Jinn Jews, Jinn Christians, and so on, mirroring the divisions within humanity. Their spiritual practices. The types of obligations are similar, but the specific rules are adapted to their unique nature. This is simple metaphysical logic. The laws of physical purity and impurity that apply to dense human bodies, for example, do not apply in the same way to subtle beings of fire and air. They have their own corresponding codes of conduct, purity and impurity, suited to their fiery essence. You don't use water to cleanse a being of fire. You use a principle that corresponds to their own reality. I have now given you the core principles of this hidden knowledge. It is up to you to follow these threads and derive the specific details. I have cast the seeds. You must cultivate the branches. The countless hosts. Classes of the Jinn. The classes and types of Jinn are so numerous as to be beyond counting. One ancient myth speaks of a creation before the Jinn, the Yan'an, who existed in such incomprehensible numbers that their prophet fainted upon seeing just a fraction of the worlds beyond his own. Another tradition tells us that when the great King Solomon summoned the Jinn, they poured from the earth like a flood, and 420 troops were gathered before him. The esoteric lore of our tradition lists dozens of names for the different genera of Jinn, but to list them here would be pointless. What matters is understanding the principles by which they are classified. Rank versus number, a metaphysical law. It is said that mankind is 1/10 of the Jinn. This should not be taken as a literal census. It is a statement about metaphysical rank and density. It points to a fundamental law of creation. The closer a being is to the divine source, the closer it is to unity, and the fewer its manifestations. The farther it is from the source, the deeper it enters into multiplicity, and the greater its numbers. Think of the illuminated souls, the prophets. They are few. Humanity is multitudinous. The Jinn, being a rank below us, are more multitudinous still. It is a relationship of tens to units, not a literal population count. Elemental Jinn and their affinities. The Jinn's primary nature is fiery, but like the wind, which takes on the qualities of the lands it passes over, their subtle essence is easily colored by external influences. This gives rise to 4 broad elemental classes. Fiery Jinn, salamanders. The most natural state for the Jinn, dwelling in the sphere of fire. Airy Jinn, sylphs. Those in whom the element of air has become dominant. Watery Jinn, undines. Those who have an affinity for and dwell in water. Earthy Jinn, gnomes. Those in whom the element of earth has become dominant, dwelling within it. This elemental classification has a direct and practical consequence for us. In the ancient model of medicine, human temperament is governed by 4 humours, each corresponding to an element. When a person's temperament becomes imbalanced, for example, they suffer from an excess of yellow bile, the humour of fire, they create a suitable place or an energetic resonance within themselves. A fiery Jinn passing by may find this resonance attractive and attach itself to the person's energy field, causing affliction. This is why both spiritual remedies and physical ones can be effective. By restoring your elemental balance, you remove the foothold that the entity was using to influence you. The 3 spiritual paths beyond their elemental nature, the Jinn can be classified by their spiritual alignment. They fall into 3 main paths, as described in one tradition, the angelic Jinn. These are the obedient and spiritually evolved Jinn who have transcended their ego. They exist in harmony with the angelic forces and are destined for a state of bliss. Their connection to the divine is pure, the wavering Jinn. These are the beings who fly in the air, caught between the worlds. They have mixed good deeds with selfish ones and exist in a state of flux between the higher and lower impulses. They may still hold loyalty to the light, but are prone to error and mischief. The malignant Jinn. These are the disobedient and corrupt, described as being like dogs and snakes. In esoteric terms, dogs are hostile to spiritual truth, the stranger in this dark world, and snakes represent twisted and divergent paths of evil. The most important thing to understand is that for a subtle being like a Jinn, form follows morality. Their physical appearance is not fixed, it is a direct manifestation of their inner spiritual state. The perfected believers among them take on luminous angelic forms. The malignant, however, appear in the very shape of their vices, as monstrous beasts, dogs, snakes, and other satanic forms. As one text says, when Solomon asked the Jinn why their forms were so different, they replied, "The difference in our forms is due to the difference of our sins." The 5 spiritual castes of the Jinn beyond the 3 broad paths, a more detailed tradition outlines 5 spiritual castes, or classes of Jinn. This is not a biological classification, but a map of their moral and metaphysical development. The arch-deceivers, the snakes. These are the leaders of falsehood, the masters of spiritual poison. As the most dedicated servants of darkness, they dispense toxic ideologies that kill the soul's connection to the eternal. They are the generals in the army of illusion, the earthbound followers, the scorpions. These are the foot soldiers of the arch-deceivers. Like scorpions, they are cold, dry, and cling to the earth, the principle of gross materialism. They carry out the will of the snakes, stinging others with doubt and fear. The larval souls, the insects. This is the caste of the spiritually undeveloped and unaware. Like insects, their consciousness is not yet fully individualized. Their life is reactive and elemental, a kind of group soul. They are not yet mature enough to be held fully accountable for their actions, as their spiritual hearts have not yet been truly formed. The celestial flyers, the winged ones. This is the highest caste, the same group previously described as the angelic Jinn. They have transcended the earth of filth, the mire of materialism and ego, and travel in harmony with the celestial realms. They are beyond the wheel of cause and effect, entering a state of bliss without judgment. The karmic beings, those like humans. This is the caste that, like humanity, has developed a strong sense of self, knowledge, and will. Because of this, they are subject to spiritual law, reckoning, and consequence. They are the wavering souls who have mixed good deeds with bad and whose lives are a journey of reward and punishment. Under this system, divine judgment is applied with perfect wisdom. The purely good, celestial flyers, and purely evil, snakes and scorpions, proceed directly to their ultimate destinations. The karmic reckoning is for the mixed souls in the middle. The larval souls are not judged in the same way, but are guided through their evolution until their consciousness fully awakens. A bestiary of the Jinn. Folkloric manifestations. Beyond these metaphysical castes, there are countless specific species of Jinn known to us through folklore and magical texts. Their forms are legion. Here are a few of the more well-known types. The ghoul. Perhaps the most famous, the ghoul is a shape-shifting desert dweller known for preying on travelers. One myth holds that they are Jinn who were struck by meteors while trying to eavesdrop on the heavens. Some were burned away, some fell into the sea to become crocodiles, and those who fell to earth became ghouls. The Sila, a trickster entity of the lonely wilderness. When it captures a human, it is said to force them to dance, playing with them as a cat plays with a mouse. They are reputedly hunted by wolves, and their cries for help are ignored by locals who know it is a ploy. The Gadar, a predatory Jinn of Yemen and the southern lands. It is known to sexually assault its victims and is considered one of the most physically dangerous types. The Dilhat, a sea-dwelling Jinn that appears in the form of a person riding an ostrich. It is said to prey upon shipwrecked sailors, and its cry is so powerful it can cause an entire ship's crew to collapse in terror. The Shik, a bizarre entity that manifests as only half a human being, hopping or moving on its single leg. It appears to travelers who are alone, often to their great fright. These are but a few drops in an endless ocean. The forms and functions of the Jinn are as varied as the thoughts and fears of humanity itself, from which, as you now understand, they ultimately draw their existence. We can now delve into a more detailed and layered understanding of how the Jinn are classified, moving from the metaphysical to the moral and even the folkloric. The spiritual hierarchies of the Jinn. Just as they have elemental affinities, the Jinn also exist within spiritual hierarchies based on their moral alignment and level of development. One tradition outlines 3 broad paths, which are further clarified by a more detailed 5-caste system. The simple classification divides them into a transcendent part that is with the angels, an intermediate part that flies in the air, a corrupt part that consists of dogs and snakes. The more detailed 5-caste system gives us a clearer picture of this structure, the celestial flyers. This highest caste corresponds to those who are with the angels. They have perfected their nature, transcended the filth of the lower world, and exist in harmony with the celestial realms. They are beyond the cycle of reward and punishment, the karmic beings. This caste is, like the children of Adam, possessing knowledge and free will, which makes them subject to spiritual law. They correspond to the group that flies in the air, caught between the higher world of fire and the lower worlds of water and earth. They have mixed good deeds with evil and are on the path of reckoning and transformation. The arch-deceivers, the snakes, the leaders of the lowest caste, described as dogs and snakes. They are the masters of spiritual poison, actively spreading falsehood and leading others away from the light. The earthbound followers, the scorpions. These are the followers of the snakes. Like scorpions, they are cold, dry, and attached to the material world, carrying out the will of their dark masters. Together with the snakes, they form the portion of Jinn who are purely evil and destined for the fire without reckoning. The larval souls, the insects. This fascinating group represents the spiritually undeveloped. Their consciousness is not yet fully formed or individualized, making them reactive and elemental. They are not yet subject to the full weight of spiritual law, as their hearts have not truly been created. Their judgment is deferred until their consciousness is sparked into full being. The core principle here is that for the Jinn, form is a direct result of morality. Their subtle nature means their inner state shapes their outer appearance. A tradition relates that when King Solomon saw the Jinn in a bewildering variety of forms, like horses, beasts, and chimeras of all colors, he asked why they were so different when they had one progenitor. They replied, "The difference in our forms is due to the difference in our sins and the intermingling of the adversary with us." A gallery of notable entities. Beyond these spiritual classifications, folklore has identified numerous specific types of Jinn, each with its own unique appearance and habits. The ghoul, a notorious shapeshifter that haunts lonely places to mislead and prey on travelers. Ancient lore suggests they are a type of fallen Jinn, cast down to earth after being struck by meteors while trying to steal secrets from the heavens. The Sila, a trickster of the wild. It is said to toy with humans it captures, forcing them to dance as a cat plays with a mouse. The Gadar, a dangerous predator from the southern lands known for its physical and sexual violence, often killing its victims. The Dilhat, a seafaring entity that appears as a figure riding an ostrich. It preys on those lost at sea, and its shriek is said to be powerful enough to fell an entire crew. The Shik, a strange being that manifests as half a human body. It is known to appear to solitary travelers, a deeply unsettling omen. These accounts, like the story of King Solomon trying to hide his son from the angel of death in the clouds, illustrate the diverse powers and limitations of these beings. While some Jinn can manipulate the elements of the air, none can defy the ultimate decrees of the prime causer. What we have mentioned is but a small selection from an innumerable and varied host. On the art of shapeshifting, there is no doubt that the Jinn can change their shape. The reason for this lies in the very substance of their being. The core principle is one of fluidity versus solidity. The Jinn are subtle, fluid beings. Their fiery essence is not solidified or coagulated. This allows the spirit within them to manipulate and mold their form into any shape it desires, much like a sculptor works with soft clay. They can wear a form and then take it off to wear another. Humanity, by contrast, is created from the principle of earth. The dryness of this element gives us a fixed, solidified form. For most of humanity, shape-shifting is impossible. The exception, the waterman. Sacred texts speak of a human created from water. This refers to a spiritual archetype, a being whose essence is so fluid and whose inner fire is so potent that they have transcended the limitations of the earthy form. Such a being, and those who are truly of their spiritual lineage, can take on forms as the divine wills. The master's secret appears in the true disciple, the spectrum of forms, a reflection of morality. A jinn's ability to shapeshift is not random. The forms they take are a direct reflection of their inner moral state and spiritual alliances. Because they are a step removed from the primal light, the potential for darkness is strong within them. When they align with darkness, they gain an affinity for demonic shapes. Their forms manifest the very structure of disbelief and corruption. This is why they are so often seen as dogs, pigs, snakes, and scorpions. These are not arbitrary, scary forms, but the physical expression of spiritual poison. When they align with light, they gain an affinity for the human form. In this esoteric system, the human form is the ultimate structure of monotheism, the divine blueprint for a being in harmony with the source. The noble jinn emulate this form to reflect their own connection to the good. It is for this reason that the ancient logicians defined the jinn as a fiery body that can shapeshift into different forms, even that of a dog or a pig. While this is only a surface description, it perfectly captures their essential fluidity and their existence on the moral spectrum between the demonic and the divine. In this, they differ from angels, who are pure light and have no affinity for darkness. Angels can take on any beautiful form, but they can never appear in a demonic shape. The ultimate limitation. While the jinn's ability to change shape is vast, there is one sacred boundary they can never cross. No jinn or devil can ever take the true form of a prophet or one of their enlightened successors. There are two reasons for this. First, they lack the spiritual affinity or resonance. Such a form is a vessel for divine mercy and infallibility, a state to which a jinn cannot aspire. Second, even if one were to lie and attempt such a blasphemy, the divine would be obligated to expose the fraud. The cosmos is ordered for guidance, not deception, and the source would never permit such a profound lie to mislead creation. True form versus assumed form. It is crucial to understand the difference between a jinn's true form and an assumed form. Even a believing jinn's true form is a distorted and misshapen version of the human ideal. One tradition describes a jinn sheikh named Afatar who, at the Prophet's request, revealed his true appearance. He was a being covered in hair, with a long head, small eyes set vertically in his face, and teeth like a wild beast. The human constitution, built on divine harmony, is naturally repulsed by such alien forms. King Solomon himself required divine strength just to gaze upon the jinn in their native shapes. The demonic forms of dogs and pigs are the true forms of the disbelieving jinn. The beautiful, handsome, or normal human shapes they sometimes present are merely assumed forms, masks they can wear to suit their purposes. Finally, some have theorized that the jinn do not change themselves, but merely shape the air around them. This is an empty conjecture. The truth is what has been explained. Their very essence is fluid, allowing them to become a living canvas for their own moral and spiritual condition. Understand this, and you will be rightly guided. On sustenance, lifespan, and our relationship with the jinn, now we turn to the practical realities of the jinn's existence. What sustains them, how long they live, and how they relate to us. The two natures of sustenance. A jinn's nourishment depends entirely on its state of being. In their essential state, in their true, subtle, and formless nature, their sustenance is simply the inhalation of the breeze. They are nourished by pure prana or ether, the subtle energies of the cosmos, in an assumed form. When a jinn takes on a specific form, it becomes subject to the needs of that form. If it takes the shape of a beast, it requires the sustenance of a beast. If it takes a human form and densifies its body to interact with the physical world, It requires human food and drink. This ability to interact physically was most famously demonstrated in the age of King Solomon. He commanded legions of jinn who were made coarse for service. They performed incredible feats of labor, building cities of glass, forging metals, carving mountains, diving for pearls, and even preparing feasts in massive stone cauldrons. In this densified state, they were sustained by the same food as Solomon's human servants. Esoteric lore holds a deeper secret to their nourishment. When jinn emissaries once asked the prophet for a source of food, he assigned for them bones and dung. This is not to be taken literally. The jinn, being a remnant and remainder of creation, are sustained by the subtle, leftover life force or etheric residue of things. They consume the memory of the meal from the bone and the memory of the life force from the waste of a pure animal. They feed on the echo, for they are an echo of our reality. Procreation and mortality. The jinn do procreate according to their own nature. It is even said that on rare occasions they can intermarry with humans, as was the case with the famous Queen of Sheba, who was said to have a jinn mother. They can also die and be killed, but with a crucial caveat: only when they have taken on a dense, physical form. In their native, subtle state, they are not subject to the same laws of decay and death that govern earthly beings. A being of pure, smokeless fire does not perish in the same way as a creature of flesh and blood. Answering the seeker's questions, the seeker then asked a series of specific and profound questions, which we will now answer. What is their lifespan? Their lifespans are extraordinarily long, often stretching for 1,000 years or more. Because their composition is subtle and fiery, they lack the elemental causes of corruption and decay that wear down physical bodies. Freed from the cycle of generation and decay, their existence is vastly more enduring than our own. How do they interact with humanity? Their relationship with us is twofold, reflecting the paradox of our fallen state. In essence, they are our servants. As a ray of light is to its source, they are metaphysically subordinate to us. Their existence revolves around ours. In practice, they are friends or foes. In our current state, the believing jinn are obedient to and respectful of humanity. The disbelieving and rebellious jinn, however, are our sworn enemies. They are the haters of humankind, constantly lying in wait to cause harm, temptation, and chaos. However, humanity is not left defenseless. The divine has bridled these dark forces and protects humanity with a powerful shield. This is the role of the guardian angels, who surround every human, believer and non-believer alike, and protect them from the worst of the jinn's malice. Were it not for this divine veil of protection, the forces of darkness would have overwhelmed the world long ago. As one great master said, speaking from the heart of this mystery, "We are not neglectful of your care, nor are we forgetful of your remembrance. Were it not for that, calamities would have swept you away, and the enemies would have surrounded you." The great separation, why we don't see the jinn. To understand the final destiny of the jinn, we must first understand the purpose of humanity. According to ancient law, the earth was not always as it is now. For 7,000 years, it was inhabited by the jinn and another pre-Adamic race, the Nisnas. But their time was one of chaos, corruption, and bloodshed. The angelic hosts, looking down, despaired at the state of the world and questioned the divine's patience. In response, the source revealed a new plan: to place upon the earth a vicegerent, Khalifa, a new being who would be a true spiritual authority. This being was Adam, the archetype of humanity. The purpose of humanity was to produce a lineage of prophets, messengers, and enlightened masters who would guide creation back to the source. As part of this great cosmic plan, a new order was established. The corrupt pre-Adamic races were purged. The rebellious jinn were banished to the air and the corners of the earth. And most importantly, a veil was placed between the world of humanity and the world of the jinn. This veil prevents open mingling and protects humanity from constant interference. The jinn cannot freely interact with us unless the veil is lifted, an event tied to the final prophetic cycles of the earth, when a great confrontation will purify the world of their influence. The afterlife journey of the jinn. When a jinn dies, its journey depends on its spiritual alignment. The obedient, believing jinn are destined for paradise. Because of their fluid nature and lesser ego, They often have a greater ability to perceive the enlightened masters in this life than ordinary humans do. At the moment of their death, they witness these masters, though the vision granted to a pure human soul is infinitely more profound. After death, they undergo a questioning in the grave by angelic beings. However, the angel of death and the questioners known as Munkir and Nakar are not the same entities that attend to humans. The angels assigned to the Jinn are a remnant of the light of the human attending angels, perfectly maintaining the cosmic hierarchy. From there, their spirits are transported to an intermediate paradise, but not the true paradise of humanity. They enter Al-Haza'ir, the enclosures or the courts. This is the paradise of the shadow, a beautiful reflection or ray of the true paradise, corresponding perfectly to their nature as a ray of humanity's light. The final abodes, the source and the shadow. On the final day of resurrection, this principle holds true. Humans and Jinn will be gathered, but they will inhabit different realms suited to their nature. The paradises. There are 8 original paradises for humanity. 7 of these cast a shadow, and these 7 shadows form the 7 paradises of the Haza'ir for the Jinn. The hells. There are 7 original layers of hell, which cast 7 shadow hells. These fiery Haza'ir are the destination for the disbelieving Jinn. The metaphysical law is perfect and elegant. The source of light goes to the source, and the ray of light goes to the ray. The final question, the infinite ascent. Is there a limit to the spiritual growth of the Jinn? The answer is no. Their spiritual journey for good or for ill is infinite. The divine created all beings for permanence and completion, not for stagnation or annihilation. Existence is a constant state of becoming. This means that in the afterlife, the inhabitants of paradise will increase in bliss for all eternity, while the inhabitants of hell will increase in their suffering. Think of it as the growth of 2 mystical trees. The seed of gnosis, spiritual knowledge, planted in the heart, grows into a goodly tree whose roots are firm and whose branches reach to the heavens, producing new fruit for all time. The seed of denial, planted in a dark heart, grows into the infernal tree of Zakkum from the depths of hell, its bitter fruit multiplying forever. The journey never ends. For every soul in every realm, the path of ascent or descent stretches into infinity. The great chain of being, on limits and purpose. We have established that the spiritual journey of the Jinn is infinite. However, this ascent has one absolute and unbreakable limitation: the unbreakable hierarchy. Though their growth is endless, the Jinn can never reach the station of humanity. They can become perfected Jinn, but they can never become human. It is as impossible as a ray of light reaching the station of the star that projects it, or a branch reaching the rank of the root from which it grew. Spiritual growth is a horizontal ascent, not a vertical one. A being perfects itself within its own rank, its own plane of existence. It does not leap from one rank to the next. Some have superficially claimed that a mineral becomes a plant becomes an animal, and an animal becomes a human. This is a misunderstanding. The mineral does not become a plant. Rather, it can be perfected to the point where it becomes a suitable vessel for a plant's consciousness to manifest through it. It is like a mirror which can be polished to perfectly reflect the sun. The mirror reflects the sun. It does not become the sun. This principle applies to all ranks of being. Each ascends infinitely within its own orbit. The purpose of all creation. What then is the ultimate benefit in the creation of the Jinn, or indeed of anything? The simplest answer is given in the sacred texts. I did not create the Jinn and humankind except to worship me. The purpose of all created things is to know, obey, and achieve nearness to the divine source. But there is a deeper layer to this purpose. The ultimate goal for which the entire cosmos was manifested is the creation of the perfect human. This does not mean every individual human. It refers to the primal archetype, the first and most perfect emanation from the source. In our tradition, this is the Muhammadan reality. This archetype is the true beloved of the divine, the one for whom all of creation was made. As stated in a sacred tradition, I created you for my sake, and I created all of creation for your sake. This does not negate the purpose of worship for lesser beings. Instead, it defines it. Worship is only perfected when it is done through the proper channels of the cosmic hierarchy. Humanity's worship is perfected through the prophets and masters. The prophets' worship is perfected through their recognition of the primal archetype. Everything must turn to the link in the chain directly above it to properly turn to the source. The root, not the fruit. A final clarification, a final philosophical point is necessary. Many mystics have called this primal archetype the final cause or purpose of creation. This has led to confusion because in classical philosophy, the final cause, the purpose for which a thing is made, comes last in existence. This is a metaphorical use of the term. To resolve the paradox, understand this. The primal archetype is not the final fruit of the tree of creation. It is the original seed. It is the first cause and the root of all roots. The true order of creation is this. The divine first brought forth the perfect human, the sacred reality, as the origin of all origins. All of creation, from the highest archangel to the lowest mineral, is a branch from this root, a ray from this original light. Each level in this great chain is a branch of the one above it, and a root to the one below it. Humanity is a branch of the primal archetype, but a root to the Jinn. The Jinn are a branch of humanity, but a root to the animal kingdom. The animal kingdom is a branch of the Jinn, but a root to the plant kingdom. And so the chain extends, each part drawing life from above and giving life to what is below, all turning in their orbits around the one true purpose for which they were made. The final questions. Purpose and the mechanics of being the veiled purpose of the Jinn. Beyond their own spiritual journey, the Jinn have a practical role in the cosmos. The obedient among them are servants to the great spiritual masters of humanity, the manifest imams. They are agents of their will, carrying out tasks in distant lands, much as they once served King Solomon. They also act as helpers and guardians to the faithful, repelling harm and bringing benefits in ways unseen. Their full positive function in the world is currently hidden behind the veil. But in the future state of truth, when the spiritual hierarchy is made manifest on earth, their purpose will become clear to all. Ultimately, the purpose of both Jinn and humankind is one: the worship and gnosis, direct intuitive knowledge of the divine source. This entire cosmic structure, from the primal archetype down to the lowest mineral, is a great chain of being. Every link is a shepherd responsible for its flock below it, and every link is a branch connected to the root above it. Each has its part to play in the great cosmic act of worship. Don't forget to visit www.sankukh.com. That's SANKUKH.com. Free grimoires and a private Telegram group available. The ultimate remedy and protection. What is the remedy for repelling the harm of the Jinn? The protection is twofold, and it is rooted in understanding your own nature. 1. Know your rank and do not fear. This is the single most powerful defense. You must eradicate fear of them from your heart. Understand your position in the cosmic order. You are of a higher rank. They are in need of you and your spiritual lineage. You are not in need of them. They were created from a mere ray of your light. When you stand firm in the knowledge of your true station, what place is there for fear? Their terrifying forms are powerless against a soul that knows its own authority. Terror dissolves in the face of gnosis. 2. Sacred vibration. The second defense is the use of sacred recitations. The Word of God, especially verses of power like the throne verse and the supplications passed down from the enlightened masters, are a potent shield. As it is said, take what you will from the Quran and you will be safe. Arm yourself with knowledge and be at peace.